Here's something most people don't know about sheep. They will not lie down unless four conditions are met. They have to be free from hunger, free from tension within the flock, free from pests, and free from fear. Four conditions. Before a sheep can rest, every single one of those boxes has to be checked. A shepherd watching a flock of sheep lying down in a pasture isn't just seeing animals taking a nap. He's seeing the evidence of hours, sometimes days, of deliberate work to make that pasture safe. Welcome to Living on a Prayer. I'm so glad you're here today. We're looking at 3 verses from Psalm 23, verses 1 through 3, and a message I'm calling Finding Rest in Green Pastures. And I want to suggest something to you. David wasn't being poetic when he wrote about green pastures. He was being technical. We treat rest as a reward. That's the problem. You finish the project, then you get to rest. You survive the week, then you get Saturday. You grind for 30 years, then you get retirement. Rest is what happens when the work is done. Except the work is never done. There's always another load of laundry. There's always another email. There's always another relationship that needs tending. So rest keeps getting pushed further into the future until it becomes this mirage you're chasing, but never quite reaching. You tell yourself you'll rest when things calm down. Things don't calm down. And the solutions we invent are band-aids on a hemorrhage. A bubble bath, a weekend off, a glass of wine and a show, a vacation where you spend the first 3 days decompressing and the last 2 days dreading the return. I'm not knocking any of those things. I love a good vacation. But treating exhaustion as a scheduling problem is like treating a broken leg with aspirin. You might dull the pain for a few hours, but the break is still there. We're exhausted and we keep trying to solve it with better time management or stricter boundaries. And none of it works because the problem isn't logistical. It's theological. David writes, "The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul." 3 verses, 6 clauses. And right there in the middle of the most beloved passage in the entire Bible is a word that should stop us cold. He makes me. Not invites, not suggests, not offers. Makes. David uses the same kind of language you'd use for a doctor setting a broken bone. The shepherd doesn't ask the sheep if they'd like to rest. The sheep don't vote on it. The shepherd determines that rest is necessary and then creates the conditions for it to happen. Now think about that for a second. David could have said, "The shepherd provides green pastures." That would have been nice. That would have been a good God throwing some grass over the fence. But David says, "The shepherd makes me lie down." There's an element here that's not passive. There's something almost forceful about God's care. The shepherd who loves his sheep will not stand by and watch them run themselves to death. He will physically position them in a place where their only option is to stop. Some of the hardest seasons in your life, the ones where everything ground to a halt and you had no choice but to be still, those might not have been punishments. They might have been pastures. The counterintuitive wisdom here is that rest is not something you find. It's something you're given. And being given something requires open hands. You can't receive rest while you're gripping the steering wheel with both fists, telling God exactly how your life should go and when. I know this because I've tried. I've had seasons where I was so committed to my own plan, so convinced that the next thing would finally make me feel okay, that I ran straight past the green pastures God had prepared. I remember a year where I was working 2 jobs, leading a small group, trying to be present for my family, and convinced that all of it was obedience. It was actually avoidance. I was afraid of what I'd hear in the silence, so I filled every minute. That's the thing about green pastures. They're quiet. And quiet can be terrifying when you've been running from something. Some of us aren't exhausted because we have to be. We're exhausted because we're using productivity as an anesthetic. If I stop, I might have to feel the grief. If I slow down, I might have to face the question I've been avoiding. If I rest, I might have to admit that the thing I've been building isn't actually what God asked me to build. The green pasture is a gift, but it's a gift that requires honesty. You can't lie down and stay tense at the same time. So what does it actually look like to let God make you lie down? Not theoretically, but today, in your actual life. I think it starts with one small surrender. Not a massive life overhaul. One thing you've been gripping that you can release. Maybe it's the assumption that everything depends on you. Maybe it's the belief that your worth is tied to your output. Maybe it's the fear that if you stop praying for 5 minutes, God will forget about you. Whatever it is, today, you hand it over. You say out loud, God, I cannot carry this anymore, and I'm tired of pretending I can. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of prayer. And then you let him lead. The third verse says, He guides me along the right paths for His name's sake. Not my paths, His. The paths He leads us down after we've rested are not the same paths we would have chosen when we were running on empty. Rest changes what we want. It changes what we're chasing. When your soul is refreshed, you stop striving for things that don't matter. You start noticing things you missed. You become someone who can actually hear God because you're not screaming at Him about your agenda anymore. You're listening. If you're finding this meaningful, I'd love for you to subscribe and join us tomorrow, and drop a comment below about what God is teaching you. We read everyone. The invitation today is simply to let yourself be made to lie down, to stop treating rest as a luxury you can't afford, and start receiving it as a mercy you desperately need. The shepherd is standing in the pasture, and he's been waiting for you. Not with a whip, with water, with grass, with the kind of deep soul rest that no vacation, no achievement, no amount of money can buy. He restores your soul, not improves it, not optimizes it, restores it to what it was always meant to be. Let Him. Until next time, friends, may God's grace and peace be with you.